What if I told you that the greatest conquerors, the most powerful rulers, and the legends of history were all vulnerable to one thing, not war, not betrayal, but love? Throughout history, kings and emperors have commanded armies, shaped civilizations, and rewritten the fate of nations. But behind their power and glory lay fragile hearts, hearts that burned with love, sorrow, and devotion. Join us as we unveil the untold love stories of the greatest figures in history. Stories that prove no matter how powerful you are, love always finds a way. Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Achaemenid Empire, the liberator of nations, and a king remembered for his justice. His empire stretched across lands that had never before been united under one rule. He was a warrior, a strategist, a lawgiver, but beyond the glory of conquest and the wisdom of leadership, he was also a man who loved. At his side was Cassandain, a noble Persian princess and the woman who held his heart. Unlike many kings who married for politics, Cyrus and Cassandain shared a deep bond, one built not just on duty, but on love and mutual respect. Cassandain was more than just a queen. She was Cyrus's most trusted confidant, a woman of intelligence and grace who played a key role in shaping the early days of the empire. She was known for her wisdom and strength, standing beside Cyrus as he forged a new world order based on tolerance and justice. But even the greatest kings cannot escape the pain of loss. When Cassandain passed away, Cyrus was shattered. Despite his vast empire, his legendary victories, and his unwavering strength, he found himself powerless against grief. It is said that he mourned her deeply, refusing to remarry, as no one could ever replace her. He built great monuments, conquered distant lands, and carved his name into history. But in his heart, the memory of Cassandain remained eternal. Though his empire would one day fade, their love had already become legend, because even the mightiest rulers are never greater than love itself. Amid the storm of politics and war, a love was born, one that would change history forever. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, was known not only for her beauty, but for her intelligence and power. And Julius Caesar, the man who held the fate of Rome in his hands, was drawn to her like a moth to flame. Cleopatra knew she needed a powerful ally to secure her throne. But what grew between her and Caesar was more than just a political alliance. Their first meeting in the grand halls of Alexandria was the beginning of an undeniable passion. Caesar was captivated not just by her presence, but by her unmatched wit, ambition, and unwavering confidence. She was a woman who bowed to no one, not the Roman Senate, not her enemies, and not even a man like Caesar. When Cleopatra arrived in Rome, the world trembled. The senators whispered of betrayal. They feared a woman who could conquer an empire without raising a single sword. But Caesar did not care. He saw her not just as a lover, but as a queen worthy of ruling beside him. But fate was cruel. The conspirators struck, and on that fateful day, dagger after dagger found its mark in Caesar's body. The love that had given Cleopatra hope, her key to securing her power, was suddenly gone. She fought to hold on to her throne, but it was too late. In the end, with everything lost, she chose to die as she had lived, with grandeur, dignity, and the unshakable pride of a queen. In the grand courts of the Mughal Empire, where power and opulence reigned supreme, one love story stood above all others, a love so deep that it became immortal. Shah Jahan, the emperor who ruled one of the greatest empires of his time, was not only a warrior and a statesman, he was a man madly in love. Mumtaz Mahal, his beloved wife, was not just his queen, but the soul of his existence. She was his confidant, his most trusted advisor, and the mother of his children. Wherever he went, she was by his side, even in the hardships of war. But fate is cruel to those who love too deeply. In 1631, during the birth of their 14th child, Mumtaz Mahal died in his arms. Shah Jahan's world shattered. The man who had commanded armies, who had built an empire, who had been one of the most powerful rulers of his age, was brought to his knees by grief. His hair turned white in mere months. His heart sank into darkness. But he vowed that her name would never fade from history. From his sorrow, he gave birth to a masterpiece, the Taj Mahal. With 20,000 artisans, shimmering white marble, and intricate carvings, he built a tomb so magnificent that centuries later, it still stands as the ultimate symbol of love. Every minaret, every precious stone, every delicate arch was a whisper of devotion, a frozen moment of grief turned into beauty. But even this grand monument could not ease his sorrow. In his final years, he was overthrown by his own son and imprisoned in the Red Fort of Agra. There, from his cell, he had only one solace, a small window from which he could see the Taj Mahal in the distance, the resting place of the love he lost. And when he died, his body was placed beside Mumtaz Mahal, reunited at last in death, beneath the dome that love had built. She was the Virgin Queen, the woman who defied the expectations of an era, the monarch who led England into its golden age. Elizabeth I, daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, ruled alone, her name becoming a symbol of strength, wisdom, and resilience. But behind the grandeur of her reign, behind the cold, calculated decisions of a queen, there was still a woman who knew love but was forced to deny it. His name was Robert Dudley, a childhood friend, a loyal companion, and perhaps the only man she ever truly loved. They had grown up together, and from the moment Elizabeth took the throne, Dudley was always by her side. He was charming, ambitious, and utterly devoted to her. But there was one problem. He was already married. When his wife, Amy Robsart, was found dead under mysterious circumstances, whispers of murder and scandal spread like wildfire. Many believed that Elizabeth and Dudley had conspired to remove her, though no evidence was ever found. But the damage was done. Elizabeth could never marry him now. As a queen, she had to put her country before her heart. Marriage to Dudley would have destroyed her reputation and endangered her rule. And so she made the ultimate sacrifice. She remained unwed, choosing England as her one true love. Yet Dudley never truly left her heart. Even as he married another, even as years passed, their bond remained unbroken. When he died in 1588, he left her a final letter, one that she kept in a small box beside her bed until the day she died. Elizabeth I became one of the greatest rulers in history, but she paid the price for power with loneliness. She wore the crown with pride, but in the quiet of her chambers, away from the eyes of the court, she remained simply Elizabeth, a woman who once loved and lost. He was the man who crowned himself emperor, the brilliant strategist who reshaped Europe with his conquests. Napoleon Bonaparte, a name that struck fear into his enemies and commanded loyalty from his soldiers. But even the greatest conqueror of his time was defenseless against love. Her name was Josephine, and before she became an empress, she was simply Rose Tacher de la Pagerie, a widow with 2 children, known for her elegance and charm. When she met Napoleon, he was a young, ambitious officer, madly in love at first sight. He wrote her passionate letters, calling her his one true happiness, his destiny. But for Josephine, love took time. She was older, more experienced, and at first saw him as nothing more than an eager young soldier. Yet Napoleon's devotion broke through her walls, and soon they were inseparable. When he rose to power, she stood by his side, and in 1804 he placed the imperial crown upon her head himself, a gesture of ultimate love and trust. What do these stories teach us? That no matter how great, how powerful, or how legendary you are, love is the one force that can never be controlled. Because in the end, empires fall, thrones crumble, and names fade into history. But love? Love is eternal, but love and power rarely mix. Josephine could not give Napoleon the one thing he desired most, an heir. The pressure on him grew, and despite still loving her, he made the most painful decision of his life. He divorced her. Their last moments together were filled with heartbreak. As she left, Josephine whispered that she would always love him. And Napoleon, the man who had defeated kings and emperors, wept. Even after he remarried, even as he built his empire, his heart never truly moved on. And years later, when he was exiled and dying alone on the island of St. Helena, his last words weren't about his battles or his glory. They were, France, the army, Josephine. He had conquered the world, but he had lost the one thing he could never reclaim, her. In the vast Mongolian steppes, where the wind dances through the tall grass and the endless sky merges with the earth, 2 children played, Temujin and Borte. From a young age, they shared a special bond, not just an arranged betrothal set by their families, but a love that grew deep in the heart of the steppes. They ran together, whispered secrets beneath the starry sky, and promised never to be apart. But fate was merciless. When Temujin was still a young man, the Merkits raided their camp and kidnapped Burton. His heart burned with anguish, and he swore to bring her back. With no army and no power, he sought allies, rekindled old friendships, and even turned former enemies into his supporters. Months later, under the cover of night, Temujin and his warriors attacked the Merkit camp. Blood stained the earth, screams echoed in the darkness, but Temujin wanted only one thing, Borte, and at last he found her. Despite all she had endured, Borte stood strong. When their eyes met through the chaos and smoke, no words were needed. In silence, everything was said. He pulled her from the wreckage of war, and this time, he swore never to let anything come between them again. After this, Borte was not just a wife. She was the queen of Temujin's heart and his empire. While he conquered battlefields, Borta ruled the home, managed politics, and secured alliances among the Mongols. She became the mother of his children, a woman whose position in his heart was unmatched by any of his other wives. As the years passed, Genghis Khan became the ruler of the world's greatest empire. But even in the height of his glory, he never forgot his first love. Borta was the only woman who remained by his side through every trial and triumph. In the end, Genghis Khan conquered the world, but his heart always belonged to Borta.